So we're just gonna we can do a bit of a Q&A too if people have any questions. I thought that was Leo for a
Yeah,
second.
totally.
Um,
Got an interloper.
little baby. But yeah, if
Yeah.
anybody has astrology questions or tarot questions or anything, or wants to jump in the conversation, I will be looking down at my phone here and there. Um, but otherwise,
My cat is making noises like she's about to have a hairball. Please don't do that right now. Okay, maybe it was just so weird. I kind of picked her up like from her stomach. So, okay, sorry, Lily. She gets
okay.
very excited when I'm on the computer and she has to join, but maybe it was a little too much excitement. But yeah, totally. Yeah, I think our theme for today, right, was kind of like navigating Aries season.
Yeah.
Definitely feel like a lot of us have been feeling this kind of abrupt, switch. And we were talking about Mercury leaving shadow period yesterday, right? And like that kind of also felt like a little bit of a kick in the pants.
Yes.
A lot of things kind of arrived on the doorstep that were lagging, which is always nice, but then also it's like, oh my God, okay, 15 things. So yeah, that transition can be interesting.
Oh, for sure. Let me see if I can actually write something on here. I might be able to, like the topic at least. I don't know how to do this.
On the live,
Yeah.
like while it's going.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know you can do it. I think you can do it after you like finish posting it, but I don't know how to do it when it's running. You might have had to have done it before you started. I don't know.
I
I
have
could be
no
wrong.
idea.
Don't listen to me.
Okay. Um, to jump in. Okay. I just put a comment. Can I pin this comment? Okay, great. I figured it out.
Yay.
We're doing great.
Yeah, we're not too old yet.
I I have those moments very frequently.
Yeah, it really makes me think about like the last couple months though. Remember at the beginning of the year, you and I were listening to, or like we separately listened to, Chris Brennan's like overview for the year and talking about how astrologically it looked like, in the springtime, basically AI tech was going to advance to the point where like we genuinely cannot tell anymore. We can't rely anymore on is this media real or fabricated, right? And like how that was going to change kind of like the nature of our reality. And like I've been thinking about that this entire like last 3 or 4 months, and like it is just coming true. It's
Yeah.
on the one hand, it's like I think when you know things like astrology, it's nice, right? It's helpful because it helps you feel like you're not crazy, like, okay, this was, I don't want to say preordained, but like this is a reflection of this bigger cosmic pattern. But at the same time, also sometimes it's just really scary because it's like, yeah, I think we are solidly in that space now. And like tech, like, I mean, we joke about it when we're younger, like, oh, our parents, like can't handle their smartphones or whatever. But, or even like, the internet browser, like, my dad is 80 and like he still has trouble figuring out how to use like Safari, right? But also the older we get, it's like, okay, technology increases at an exponential level. Where's it going to be when we're 80, right? And are we going to have patience, the capacity to keep up with it? I don't know. I'm already starting to feel a little left behind, or just like even by choice, right? Just like I don't know if I want to keep up.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because like I've been thinking a lot about what Chris Brennan said since watching that in December. And I've been thinking about that a lot in general. Like it's very rare, it happens every 35, 36 years that we have a Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And the last one was in Capricorn, which you have in your chart. You have that conjunction.
Yep,
And so,
89ers.
yeah, 89ers. And I think that's like a really big thing to be said about like the recurrence transits for people your age and like, diving into all that. But even just like when you look back on 89, that was right before the internet. And so it is really crazy to think that like the last time we had a conjunction like this, the internet was born,
Being
create.
born, yeah.
Yeah, being born, it was like in the process because technically the internet, I think it like came out in like 91. So
Right, right.
it definitely has Saturn in Aquarius, and the Saturn return of the internet was my Saturn return because my
Huh,
Saturn's Aquarius. Um, and so I know,
interesting.
yeah, that was a big thing that I thought about a lot when Saturn was in Aquarius because think about what
Hmm.
happened. Like Saturn
Yeah.
moved to Aquarius in 2020, the day the riots broke out, when all of that started to change, and then
Hmm.
everybody was working remote. And
Right.
so everybody needed the internet. It was like a full resurgence of that
Yeah.
energy. And it's interesting to think that it was being created while that Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus was in Capricorn too. So there was like a triple conjunction
Yeah.
at that time. But then moving forward into the space in which it's in now is so crazy to think about,
Yeah.
right? Like
It's another level.
it's a whole
Yeah.
nother level of just like insanity because now since it's in Aries, there is this influx of like confusion. We don't know what's real and what's not. Like even my grandma was telling me she was watching this video and she got really offended by this like this crazy thing that this man was saying in this video and he just was like very extremist and I don't even remember what she was saying he was saying, but like she just got really upset by what this man was saying. And
Mm.
I was like, well, like, what was it? She was like trying to explain it to me. And then it turns out the whole video was AI and the man didn't
Hmm.
exist and
Even
like none
exists.
of it
Yeah.
was real. And she felt really like bamboozled by it. Like,
Yeah.
she-
Betrayed. Right.
right.
Betrayed. Yeah.
Yeah. Because she like got really upset by this man's views, which I was like, just swipe. Like, if you,
Right.
old people
Right.
on the internet
Well,
is so funny. It's like if a video offends you and you don't like what somebody's saying, just swipe.
yeah, yeah. Like that's common sense, right? But then it's like our emotions and our psychology always gets in the way of common sense. I mean, I've definitely been, snookered too. I mean, I think it's like which is worse, finding some content that you find really offensive and horrible and then finding out that it's AI, right? Or finding something that you think is awesome and you're like, wow, this is amazing. This is so cool that this exists. I love this person. I love this technology. I love whatever, right? And then you're
Right.
like, oh, it's fake, right? And then add to that the layer of people are always going to try to capitalize, make money off of it. So nowadays, I think one of the biggest problems I'm seeing is that so many advertisements, right? Like so much product out there is fake. And I mean, like I'll admit, I think I bought something that was like an AI fake, or I tried to, like last month, and then it just like never arrived, right? Because that's kind of like the way those scams work, is they just hope that people like just forget or whatever and like don't file a complaint. But like as soon as I filed a complaint, they like gave me my money back. And then I like looked at the rest of their shop on Etsy and I was like, wow, you have like 20 billion products. Like this probably isn't real because like if you were a real like I didn't, I hadn't taken the time, the due diligence to investigate before I
Right.
bought the thing. And that's kind of
Right.
where it's coming to is like we all need to maybe it's like a Saturn and Aries thing too, right? Of like we've talked so much about the gas and the brakes at the same time. Like you have to slow down. And there's something here about discernment where we have to start slowing down, really
Yeah.
examining whether it's like a video or something that we want to buy or politician or a nature video or whatever. It's like you really have to sit with it and go, is this real? Right. Um,
Right. Right.
and yeah, how much do I trust this? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And
Mhm.
I think there's so much to be said about that. Like, and I think going forward, especially when Uranus moves into Gemini for good for the next 7 years, like I
Yeah.
think that's gonna get honestly really scary for a little
Yeah.
while at first because it's gonna move
Yeah.
and then
Remind us, when is
really,
that happening?
ugh, you know what? I think it's in like a month.
Isn't it soon? I was going to say, isn't it
It's
soon?
very soon.
Yeah.
It's probably less than a month at this point. I keep forgetting it's already mid-April.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. Like
Um,
summer is just around the corner. Yeah.
yeah, I think it was early May. Um, I feel like it moved the first week of May,
Mm. Yeah.
which
Well, I think safe to say it's soon either way. Yeah. Um, Yeah, what
Oh,
do you see that playing out as for the general community? Like for me specifically, right? Gemini, my 11th house is, I'm like not loving that it's going to be there for so
right,
long. Especially since like typically my 11th house with my Jupiter, my moon, my Ceres in there, like it's a happy place. Like I usually it's a place that I vibe out in and I'm not scared of, but Uranus always injects that note of you don't know what's coming your way
right.
and you have to let go of those expectations. So for me personally, I'm a little anxious, but yeah, what do you think it means generally speaking, regardless of your chart?
Yeah. Well, I mean, even for you, your placements aren't till like 27 degrees, 27 and 29. So you've got a
Very
bit.
late. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got quite a while before I would say you even need to worry about it or mess with it because yeah, you've got time. But it looks like April 25th.
Mm. Okay, so it's this month. Yeah, less than a month.
Yeah. Which like doesn't surprise me, but also is like, oh, that came quick.
Yeah, well, and it's right. We were talking about like on the 16th, everything being in Aries, right? So there's so many things just like lining up in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks that are already like, oh, brace, brace, brace for it.
Right.
Yeah, got that.
Oh, I know. Well, and that is actually kind of funny because the 17th and the 16th and the 17th, we're gonna have 7 planets in Aries.
Yeah,
And then we'll still have six. The moon will leave, but we'll still have 6 planets in Aries. And then Uranus moves into Gemini.
to Gemini. Yeah, yeah,
And
and I
it's
think.
just, no, go ahead.
Oh, and I was just gonna say, like Aries in general gives me a little anxiety, I think, because it's just such a hot and fast force. And maybe it's also like my mom's chart has a lot of Aries, and she has over the years displayed a lot of like what I consider to be more toxic Aries charts, I think, or
Yeah.
characteristics. So I think I just have a little bit of like a trauma response. But I think for you, you might be one of the people that feels more comfortable with Aries energy, right? Like with your chart. But like even for you, it's a little a little anxiety inducing, or how do you feel about everything moving into Aries?
Yeah, I have a lot of feelings about it. I mean, I'm in an Aries perfection year right now, so it's just being so incredibly activated. And I've been I've just been having a lot of 10th house stuff because I'm a Cancer rising, but I'm ruled by my 3-degree Aries moon. So everything has just been hitting my moon right now. Everything is at very early Aries, and it's just felt like such a heavy energy. Um, and I will say, like, having Saturn being on my moon right now, like, this
Mm.
feels harder than my Saturn return felt.
Mm.
Um, because my Saturn return, I really was like bracing myself for that because I have Sun, Mercury, and Saturn in Aquarius. So when I had my Saturn return, I was like, okay, like I do have a day chart, but this like could be really bad or like hard or whatever. And it felt, I had to do a lot of work. It wasn't just like smooth sailing, but it was easy. Like I felt really aligned with the work I was doing and everything felt great. But there's something to be said about like with it hitting my moon, um, especially like I've been having bad food aversions. That's
Mm.
mostly cleared up, but I think like that was one of the most literal manifestations that I saw for a long time, especially last summer when it moved the first time.
Is
I
that because the moon is associated with like the body and kind of
nutrients in your
like,
stomach
yeah,
and the body. Yeah, I was
nurturing on like a physical level, not just emotional?
right. Exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
Leo is up in my kitchen on top of the microwave thing, and you can see him in the.
Aw, that's cute. Yeah, we've both got kitties here, so you might see some feline antics on either side. Yeah.
I love that.
Interesting.
Yeah, you can see him in the video. But yeah, so like I think that was one of the biggest manifestations for me. And I thought it was interesting because I've been seeing a lot of other Cancer risings talking about how they've gained
Mm.
a lot of weight because Jupiter's been in Cancer.
Mm.
And I thought it was really
Interesting.
funny because, yeah, I mean, like, I'm a 16-degree Cancer rising. So, like, Jupiter's at 16 degrees right now. Like it is minutes
Mm.
from my ascendant right now. And I've just been finding it funny because I've lost a lot of weight, if anything. And I'm still
Hmm.
kind of in a phase of like feeling almost indifferent towards food, if anything. Like
Yeah.
I'm eating. I had 3 meals yesterday. Like I'm eating better, but I definitely thought a lot about that when it was last summer and I like couldn't eat at all and like my stomach like it just was like there was an anxiety like there was something in my chest that I just felt a constant like I can't eat because it'll overwhelm my body.
Mm. Yeah.
And it like it was just really interesting to see how literally that played out and like how that showed up for me. And then now with everything else being there, like I've been, I mean, I've been studying a lot of law of assumption and like trying to
Mm.
understand like the psyche and trying to figure out what's real and what's not. So that felt
Mm.
Neptune being on my moon and like trying to understand how I can get into a better alignment with everything. And that feels very like Neptune, Saturn. But I've also been having a lot of career delays that have been really difficult, to say the least. Like I think for me, like having finished the encyclopedia I've been writing for 7 years on the exact day that Saturn was exactly on my moon and Jupiter was exactly on my ascendant and just gone direct. Like the astrology was so literal that day. The sun was also on my Venus and like something was on my MC. Like it was just so literal. And I remember thinking like, how insane is this? Like how cool, how crazy. And
And it's not like you like planned it exactly
no,
that
I
way.
didn't
It's just
plan it at
like it
all.
happened, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it just
I think
happened.
yeah, that's a great example of just to interject for listeners,
Yeah.
right? How if you're interested in understanding how astrology plays out in real life on a more personal level, it's not like, yeah, it's not about trying to force your life into astrological patterns. It's more about observing what's actually happening and then looking up the chart of that moment and going, oh, interesting. I wonder if this is related to this transit or this placement, right? Yeah. And then the more you do it, you're like, whoa, this is not a coincidence. Yeah, totally.
Correct. Yeah. And it was, yeah, it was just so striking for me to see that. And then I was so excited to like get it published, get it moving. And I've just been like having a lot of delays with all of that. And like, it's all been fine, but I'm waiting. And I guess
Yeah.
in my head, I had expected that I would finish it and then it would be published right away. Um,
Yeah.
but that's like not the reality of a 2,000 page book. Like it's gonna have to be
Yeah.
edited and there's a lot more that needs to happen, but like I feel a sense of impatience. It's like I finished my job, so
Mm.
can we be done? Like, like can we go
Yeah.
ahead? And I think that frustration has just it's been really heavy on me. And I've been trying to just be like, okay, like I have free time now. So if I want to just go hang out with friends, I can. If I want to go do this or that, I can. Like I can do whatever I want. I'm free. Like I don't have to be writing this book for 8 hours a day. But then like I'm
Yeah.
panicking about money and like, it's like I can't enjoy the free time. And so it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
sitting with that and being like, okay, like Saturn is on my moon and it's like making me feel crazy and it's making me want to just like get everything done. But then there's also a part of my body that's just like, no, you actually need to rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's bizarre. It's
Yeah.
really bizarre.
Well, I mean that ability to truly be present, right? That's something that like every spiritual, religious, self-awareness, holistic health tradition always circles back around to, right? Like the more present we can truly be in any given moment, the better off we are. Because, I mean, we could go into a whole discussion about how there's no such thing as the past or the future, right? There's only this one moment. But I think even on a practical level, philosophy aside, it's like the more able to tune into your present moment you are, the more able you're going to be to make those micro shifts of like, okay, my mind that's focused on the future, or on the past, like this thing that just wrapped up, and now I want to push it into the future and get it done, like, is actually jumping over this present moment where my body's like, no, slow down, right?
Right.
Read this interesting thing recently. I can't remember the term for it. They had like a cool scientific term, but basically it was just this idea that a lot of us suffer from this. It's almost like a dissociative disorder, you could say, where like the mind wanders so strongly for like hours at a time that, for example, you don't notice that you're hungry until you suddenly feel debilitatingly nauseous and you like need to go and like make food, like, and just, or just like even grab like whatever's on the counter just so that you don't like pass out, right? Or like you don't realize that you're cold until your extremities are numb and you're like, oh, my lips are turning blue, right? Or you don't realize that you've been sitting in one position for so long that your muscles are getting cramped and stuff, and then you don't realize it until you stand up and you're like, I can't move, and there's like creaking and cracking, right? So I think we all go through things like that. I know I definitely have, but I think that's just again another example of, yeah, how do you stay present, listen to the body, right? Because
Right.
that's
Well,
the vessel we're all riding.
right. And that was like the biggest thing when I was writing the book too, is like I was going through a lot emotionally while I was writing the book, and
Mm,
I was pouring all of those emotions into these characters as I was reading through them because I wanted it to be something that people really resonated with. And I felt like the best way to really do that was going to be to give it like to pour all of my past trauma into my
mm,
writing and to like make sense of it and to be able to like clarify those things basically. But doing that was very exhausting.
yeah.
And I noticed that I actually felt better on the days that I didn't eat because
Mm,
when I ate, it felt like all of the energy in my body went to my stomach to digest
mm,
and I had nothing left for my brain and I would get foggy and I would like feel really confused and I like wouldn't feel good. So it would affect my writing. And so I basically just started like kind of accidentally starving myself because
mm,
I started associating food with something that would kind of make me crash in the middle of the day. So
mm,
I just was like, "Oh, I don't need it." Plus, I was going through a lot emotionally, so I kind of lose my appetite when I'm stressed anyway. So it was just kind of like a perfect storm of those things.
yeah.
And then I basically just stopped eating. Like I just stopped.
Yeah.
And it got to that point where like eventually I started to feel sick randomly.
Right.
And because I couldn't
Because the
regulate.
stomach shrinks and everything too, so it gets used to that,
Right.
yeah, semi-starvation. Yeah. Yeah, and it
Yeah.
makes me think about how I think a lot of us have had this too. If you're chronically sleep deprived, which, unfortunately a lot of us in this culture are, we're like, oh, I get to sleep this weekend, right? And I'm going to sleep as much as I want. And you sleep 13 hours, but you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I feel like a train hit me. Why don't I feel better? Right. And it's like, well, actually, you're going to feel worse before you feel better. Kind of analogous to a detox reaction too, right? Sometimes people start eating healthier and they don't feel better right away. They actually feel worse because their digestion is like recalibrating, right? So yeah, sometimes when we actually finally do take the time to notice the body, notice what it needs, do the thing for it, you're actually going to feel worse for a while. And it's hard to, yeah, break out of that and not just go, oh, that, form of self-care is bad, so I'm not going to do it. You have to go, no, okay, this nausea or this, like heaviness or whatever it is that you're experiencing is actually part of my body being like, oh, thank you for this rest. Thank you for this nutrition. Thank you for the whatever, the sleep. Now
Right.
give me a second to digest it, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that can be a hard
Yeah,
one.
exactly. And I think that's really great, but there's also just like, yeah, there's a sense of how can I take care of my body while I'm going through this? And
Yeah.
also, like, I mean, look at the world right now. Like, I feel like we wake up in the morning and check TikTok, checking Instagram, check whatever, and it's just like, oh, another war, oh, another
Yeah.
like insane thing that the president said or whatever. Like, it's
Yeah.
just so much. And I think. with Uranus moving back into Gemini for good, like to go back to that conversation, like
Right, right.
that is going to be so interesting to watch, especially when it trines Pluto basically right away.
Mm,
I think there's going to be a huge influx of like misinformation at first or
mm,
using information, and they're both sextiling Neptune and Aries. So there is
hmm
going to be
hmm
this conversation, and all of these things are like they're all masculine signs. And I think
mm.
last year we had every single planet move within 6 months and everything move into a masculine sign except for
Oh,
Jupiter.
interesting.
Jupiter was the only one that
Right.
moved into a feminine sign. But this year, as they're all moving for good, now Jupiter's moving into Leo.
Right. That's
And
interesting. I hadn't thought about that. And yeah, I mean, even if we're not talking like, and also it's, it's important to keep in mind when we say like masculine, feminine, we're not talking about like male,
right,
female so much as just like that
right.
yin
Not
yang
gender.
traditional energy of like active versus more receptive, these kind of things. So that would make sense that if everything's in this like more masculine energy right now, because that adds to this sense of like do, like move, 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 right? There's more of that impetuous feeling or like that desire for action. But yeah, like with that trine coming up to me, yeah, I mean, not to be a negative Nancy, but it is a little anxiety
Right,
inducing because it
right,
does seem like a lot of, I mean, anytime something's out of balance, right? It's like any if we had all feminine signs too, right? That would create its own imbalance. So it's interesting that we're getting that overly young influence at this time when the world is like leaning so hard into this patriarchal toxicity, right? It feels like, I mean, I'd like to hope it's kind of a last gasp, but it's like it seems like there's always one more last gasp, right? It's like, okay, it can't get worse than this. Wait a second. There's
right.
more. Wait a
Well,
second. There's more.
and they all were in feminine signs for the last couple years, if we think about it. Like, because Saturn and Neptune were together in Pisces, and Pluto was in Capricorn, and um, Uranus was in Taurus. And so the feminine signs are water and earth, and the masculine signs are fire and air. Because and this is like a traditional way of seeing gender, obviously, but like they saw them as like fire and air were very active and they are more likely to go after things, whereas
Right.
feminine signs are the more like passive or reflective or more likely to sit back.
Yeah,
And
like space holding. It's like energetics, right? Like if you
yeah,
think about wind blowing and like fire flaming, it's like these things will, yeah, very rapidly move and consume. Whereas the feminine ones are more like, no, we're just here. It's a pond, it's a river, it's a, and then the earth also just like sits there. Like Earth doesn't just levitate and like move, right? I mean, there's
right, right.
earthquakes, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
but of course, like there's earthquakes. It
And
eventually gets
tsunamis
poked.
and
Yeah,
rain and yeah,
exactly. Right.
those
Like the energy gets poked and moved. But yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said about that. Like we, when before Jupiter was in Gemini, um, it was in Taurus for a while. And so there were moments in the last 7 years where everything was feminine.
mm,
And now in the next 7 years, we're going to have, well, three, I guess. Um, and now in the next few years, we're going to have moments where everything is masculine. And like the
mhm.
moon changes every other day. So like it's not going
Right, right.
to be, yeah. But it is very fascinating to see the shift between, it's like right away when everything moved into the masculine energy, like everything went crazy. Like everything was such a huge shift.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, that's something you always talk about in your, sorry, my cat is disrupting the situation. That's something you always talk about in like your basic readings, right? Is just looking at the balance of elements in a natal chart. But yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I mean, you could absolutely do the same thing for current transits and stuff. And it's like even just looking at like if you say, okay, right now we have this predominance of masculine elements, even looking at do we have more fire or more air, right? Because like a combination of fire and air is like a firestorm, right? Air, oxygen is going to feed the fire, but it's like, you know, if you have more fire than air, I feel like it's going to be hotter, but not move as intensely. But if you have more
Yeah.
air, less fire, it's more like it's just going to go like everywhere, but maybe the flames aren't as big.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I went through a huge kick with that where I thought the elements and like understanding your elemental makeup is so deeply important to know about
Yeah.
myself. Like I've called myself a cloud most of
Hmm.
for years because my whole chart is air and water.
Right, right.
And so like when you are so heavy in one or two elements, like how are you going to show up? And then I've noticed, like I used to give so many lectures on this. I've noticed that people who lack an element tend
Hmm.
to seek that element out in their day-to-day life as well. So it goes both ways. Like I do have the Uranus Neptune conjunction in my chart in Capricorn, but since that's generational, I actually don't really count it.
Yeah.
I tend to really only count the personal planets just because I've gone more down like a Hellenistic route. Um, but I would consider my chart basically having no Earth. Like obviously there's the generational planets, but I have
Yeah, and my chart by that token has no water, right? Because the only thing I have is Pluto and Scorpio. So
yeah,
yeah,
right.
yeah. Something.
And like, Pluto was there for 15, 20 years and
Yeah,
everyone in our generation has that. So I just like
yeah.
don't feel like that's personal to you. Um, so yeah, when I look at that energy, I see myself as a person with no earth, and I spend so much of my time just like barefoot in the grass or trying to play outside or going for walks because like fresh air is really important to me because I have a lot of air, but I also am always like seeking ways to try to find any bit of grounding because I often
Grounding, yeah.
feel ungrounded.
Well,
And
and like as an acro performer, right, you prefer you can do both, but you actually like basing, right? Which I think is
right.
interesting too.
Well, and
Yeah.
that was, yeah, I mean, I've like really deeply analyzed that. But like, when I started as a flyer for many, many years. And then I found that as much as I love it, it wasn't doing much for me anymore. Like I'm already up in the air all the time. Like that's my life. And so finding a way to actually find grounding through acro felt like I felt a lot more accomplished when I would get something basing than I did with.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, it's like that element that you're lacking is you're probably going to crave it, but it's also going to be in some ways challenging, right? Because it's not
Correct.
natural. It's not part of your life. So when you do get a
Right.
moment of it, you really appreciate it. And also if it's somehow connected to you exercising a skill or a talent, you go, oh, how cool is that I'm actually able to do this thing, this elemental energy
Right.
that, doesn't feel natural to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Like it was like I feel very natural as a flyer and it came really easily, but like it almost came too easily. Like it was just something I felt like, yeah, I'm good at this. Whereas,
Hmm.
yeah, basing was something that I felt like I was doing something like I wasn't supposed to be doing. Like, you know what I mean? Like it
That's
felt,
interesting.
yeah, like
Yeah.
'cause, well, people would see my
Huh.
size, like I'm 5'2" and 100 pounds. Like people would see
Right.
how small I was and they would be like, you can't base. And I think maybe it's my Aries moon. It's just like, I'll prove you wrong. Like,
Right.
watch me.
That's
I can.
interesting. Yeah, this aspect of like it's an empowerment thing too, because if it's not in your chart, it's not going to be in your superficial, like what people pick up on, right?
Right,
Like even though they can't put words to it, someone's going to meet you and somewhere in their metaphysical mind, they're going, this is not an earthy person, right? And
right,
that's just a fact. It's not a judgment. It's just like this person doesn't have a lot of the earth element. Or for me, it's like this person doesn't have that water element. And so when you are able to successfully pull off a skill or, do something that falls into that category of the missing element, you're like,
Yeah,
huh, I can do it, like it may be
right?
harder for me than, someone who has this earthy or watery in my case chart, but
Yeah,
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to think
yeah,
about how that plays out because your life and mine, has such interesting parallels. For
right.
all the people who don't know us as well yet, yeah, Lori and I are like just have such interesting mirroring experiences all the time. So guaranteed, when there's something in Lori's chart, there's always like a little correspondence in mine. And for
I
me,
like a
it's like, yeah, I don't have that water element, and I'm trying to think about like how that plays out. Like, do I have a something analogous to that acro grounding moment with water? I think for me, it might be more about emotions. Like I am an emotional person, but like going into my emotions like didn't feel natural for, 30 years of my life. And it felt like something I, like shouldn't be doing. And yeah, that it wasn't part of me. And like I was just raised to be so, methodical and like pragmatic and all these other things. And then in the last like 10 years, as I've leaned more into, oh, I am an emotional person, it's been very cathartic, but it also can be kind of uncomfortable or like, oh, am I supposed to be doing this? Or, but then also sometimes I feel really proud of myself when I'm able to navigate an emotional situation successfully, right, in like a healing way. Because I'm like, yeah, look at me. I can do it. I can do water.
yeah, right, right.
um, yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah, I bet other people out there have similar things too, like holes in their charts, if you will, right? Which is like
Oh, absolutely.
simultaneously, yeah, a source of empowerment, but also it can be frustrating and yeah, something you're just like craving or grappling with.
Right. And it's usually like it's so hard sometimes to step into those spaces. And like going back
Yeah.
to spacing, because I do feel like that has been such a funny metaphor for me in my life. But like being able to just lay on the ground and lift other people who weigh so much more than me, or like lifting multiple people at once, or things like that. Like it's not something I thought I would ever be able to do. And I love
Mm,
reactions that I get from people who don't like realize that they could do this too if they just
mm,
spent the time and energy practicing. But it does take a lot more when it doesn't come naturally to you. And I think that's how I've always seen the four elements in a chart is like the thing that you have the most of is going to be your talent, like the thing that
mhm.
you are really good at.
Natural talent. Yeah.
Yeah, like something like you're natural at. So like I have a lot of air and water, probably about it's like the same amount. And so for me, like talking or sharing or communicating always has felt really natural. And then like water, like feeling my feelings has been something I've on and off gone through. Sometimes it's really easy, sometimes it's been really hard, but I've always been good at like communicating them at least.
Mhm.
But like I've noticed I have a lot of friends who have no fire, and those are always the people who like are the craziest. Like or like
Mm,
move like when it comes to like fitness. Like my best friend is my favorite example of this, but she has zero fire in her chart. And she is a marathon runner and is like
mm,
one of the most intense runners you'll ever meet.
mm.
And then the guy who owns my gym, which ironically I recently realized that they are born exactly a week apart. The um like same
Interesting.
year, same everything.
Yeah.
So because I always like saw a weird similarity between them because I've known the owner of my gym, I've known him for about 10, 11 years, and me and Susan have been friends for like 15. And so I've known them both for so long. And I've always felt like, oh, there's like a weird similarity between these two. And I ended up becoming really good friends with the gym owner's wife. Uh,
Hmm.
and she like kind of owns it too a bit, but I like we've become good friends. So I've done a lot of readings for her. So of course I have his chart now because of that. And I was like, oh my God, they're born the same week. And he also has no fire. And he's
Hmm.
like traveled the world for parkour and like is very
Hmm.
well known in that community. And
Interesting.
yeah, so I've noticed it like with circus people, there's like one extreme or the other. They're either like all fire or no fire.
Mm,
So it's
yeah,
like, are
yeah.
you good at this thing naturally, or are you obsessed with this thing because you don't have it and you feel like you need it, so you're forcing yourself into it and therefore became kind of obsessed with it.
Yeah, you're
And
driven to it because you're thirsting for it. Yeah.
exactly. And it's interesting. I when I was in Santa Fe at Jason Hawley's retreat, I took a class on the elemental makeup of your chart, and she called them oh, what was the word she used for it? It was so good. It was the ecosystem of your chart.
Mm-mm.
She had
Yeah.
all of us make our ecosystem, like paint our ecosystem.
Mm.
And something I found really interesting is I got paired up with people who were on my Greece trip, actually. So it was like girls I knew because I have traveled with them. And one of the girls has basically my exact chart. She has an
Mm.
Aquarius stellium with a Cancer rising, and like we really connected in Greece because we kind of look alike a little bit, and we have just like so many similarities in our charts. And and then the two other girls had a lot of Sag and Scorpio placements. So it was a really interesting mix of like Cancer, Aquarius, and like Sag and Scorpio. And what was funny is
What is
we,
Sag and What kind of environment is that? Like an underground, like lava vent where the water's
yes,
boiling? Like,
yes,
that sounds
exactly.
terrible.
I know, but it was so funny because the two of us with the Aquarius Cancer, we both painted like deep space.
Hmm.
And I ended up we actually were talking about these clouds, the Kordylowski clouds or something. I forget it's something like that. And they're clouds that are recently discovered that hold plasma in them. So they're
Hmm.
literally deep, like clouds that are only found in deep space that hold
Hmm.
plasmoids, and they literally hold memory. And I just kept thinking, like, a little asteroid moving through that with a little fiery tail is like my little Aries moon, like holding on for dear
Yeah.
life in all of the air and water. And I was
Wow.
like, how fucking interesting is that? Like just that image of these like intelligent green clouds that hold memory in deep space. Like that is
Yeah.
my chart. That's me. Like
That's wild.
and
Yeah, like
and she
cosmic
really
memory.
yeah.
Yeah.
And she really resonated with that too. So we had a lot of like really interesting conversations about that. And then the other two painted the deep ocean, but like almost
Mm.
like going so deep into the ocean that you're in the underworld and there's fire.
Right.
And
Yeah, because
so
they literally there are these like places where the tectonic plates, right? There are these like
yeah,
lava vents that are constantly bubbling, but they're underwater, so it's like yeah, it's like
yeah,
boiling d down there, and there's some organisms that can survive. I think it's also like the water's very is it acidic or something? It's like, the
yeah.
chemical composition of the water is also very hostile. So it's like there's not many things that survive down there, but there are some organisms that yeah, seem to rock out in these undersea lava vents. So
Hey,
yeah.
yeah, and it was just so interesting to me that like I got paired in this grouping and we had like same chart, and
Yeah.
we like accidentally painted the same thing. And our like the two of us had painted the deep sky and the two that painted deep ocean, they look the same. So it
Yeah.
was so funny that we both went in the opposite extremes, but kind of ended up in the same place. And all four of ours looked the same. And then when we zoomed out and like they had everybody share and like share with their groups too, like every group was like light and colorful and a lot of greens and
Hmm.
like or like a pond or whatever, but then ours was literally just like deep space and deep ocean.
It's
And it was just
funny.
like a lot of like blues and purples and like greens and just like and it I don't know, it just made me laugh because it was like, yeah, this is our group. This is us. This is our ecosystem.
Yeah. It makes me think about if I was doing that assignment, I feel like mine would just be the desert or something because it's just like too much. Yeah, there's earth, but it's also just like too much fire and air. Like, what would that place be in nature? I think it would be a desert, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I
probably.
mean, I don't hate the desert in real life. Like I do think the desert has a very compelling energy. I think when I was planning, when I was trying to figure out where to move from Chicago, and I ended up in Michigan, but I definitely was thinking about the Southwest. I think the only reason I didn't really seriously pursue it is just because it would have meant like, really uprooting from home as in Chicago and, not being a commuting distance from my parents and stuff. So I think Michigan just felt like a really nice middle ground, but it's definitely not desert out here. There's lots of water. So maybe I needed that though. I mean, I did move into a
Yeah.
place that literally has two ponds and wetland out back. And I've been kind of on this like bog witch kick. I've been joking
Mhm.
about it, but also I think there's something there about having that bog there. It's not just
I think
forest, it's not just grassland. Yeah, there's a bog out back. So
yeah. Well, and it's funny when you said that, I just looked over and my friend gave me for my birthday a little tiny desert garden, it's called. It's like a Lego set, but it literally just says tiny desert garden. And I was like, "Oh, that's you. That's your eco
yeah, 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 pretty much.
desert garden." Yeah, like a weird combo of like hot air and plants.
Yeah, I mean, there are some plants that are out there. I guess that's like the hidden water, right? Because if there's plants in an environment, you know that there's water somewhere. It's just not apparent, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of an interesting thing to think about too. Like a
Yeah.
desert like the Gobi Desert versus a desert like the Southwest, where there's actually, agave and what's that other plant called? Well, the plants that grow in the desert.
Right.
Cactuses, obviously. Yeah.
It's so interesting. And I love stuff like that too, like to really like sit and think about your ecosystem and like yeah, just like how is your chart playing out? What is your chart doing? What does it look
Well,
like? How can you
yeah,
visualize?
I guess to expand that to back to the kind of larger perspective, if we're saying if we're looking at the current like transit charts with that same perspective of elemental distribution, right? And we're saying, okay, right now, it's almost like the current chart is a little bit, the world chart, I mean, is a little bit similar to my natal chart in that it's a lot of that air and fire. So it's almost like we're in kind
Right.
of a Gobi Desert situation at large right now, but then that's going to provoke a deep-seated craving for like earth and water, which I think kind of tracks because I think a lot of us are being like, hey, we really need grounding, we really need emotional connection, we really need soothing, right? Like I think air and fire do a lot, but they're not necessarily soothing. They're not calming.
Soothing is not the word I would ever use to describe air and fire.
Yeah. Yeah, unless it's maybe like a sauna. Like maybe a sauna could be
Oh
relaxing.
yeah.
But also you can't spend more than, X amount of time in a sauna, right? Before you literally would die. So,
Right. Right. Yeah, you eventually need air
and water and earth.
and water. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You definitely, yeah, it's not a long-term abode. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like fire and water is steam. So it's like
Mhm.
that heat that
Yeah, yeah, it
like
can be
kind of
nice in short bursts, but I mean, fire's just a lot, I think, right? Of all the elements, right? Fire's just like the one where it's like, okay, unless it's that kind of more slow underground fire, like lava flow, for example,
yeah.
or just the heat of the seasons, or the sun bringing that energy in that plants need to grow and everything. Unless it's that kind of more gentle heat, fire when like flames, fire is kind of it's not a super sustainable element, I guess would be a way to think of it, right? Like it constantly needs to feed off of things. It needs fuel, it needs to move, right? It eats up not only the wood or the other organic material that it's feeding off of, but also the air, right? The oxygen. Um, yeah, and the air becomes unusable at that point too. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I know in a lot of like indigenous stories or even right Promethean type of legends, there's this idea that humans were given fire as like this sacred gift. But it comes with this responsibility as well. Like in some of these native traditions that I've read about, it's like when man was granted fire, he was also given the task of using it responsibly to essentially do like controlled burns.
Yeah.
That's something we're realizing, right? Like in the West Coast and stuff, is that hey, if you don't let the forest burn, if you don't do these controlled burns or just let it do what it wants to do, it's building up and it's building up, and then you're going to get a conflagration, a crazy fire that is completely out of control, and nature is going to like level that back however she can. So
Right.
yeah, the use of fire is an interesting one. Yeah, especially like in this age right now, this moment where there is so much fiery energy, right? Like I think there's just a lot of anger present in the world right now. And I'm
Correct.
not even blaming or questioning that. I definitely feel it as well. It's just I think that's something we can all observe and go, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of yeah desire to press that gas pedal, circling back to Aries season and whatnot. And yeah, obviously we have a leadership that's not afraid to act out on the slightest whim, not afraid to use any
Yeah.
form of violence, coercion, heat, yeah, whether it's empty words or actual firepower. So that's a very volatile yeah, space to be in. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, as we move out of Aries season, do you have any thoughts on for the collective on like, what the next, because we're always kind of looking forward in astrology as well, right? We're looking at the moment now, but we're also kind of trying to prepare for the next couple weeks or months. Do you see anything like noteworthy other than we talked about obviously April 25th, Uranus, Gemini, all of that. But do you see anything else as we move out of Aries season that might be noteworthy or something to keep in mind for everyone?
Well, and I wanted to make one last comment about what you said before, and then
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
your question. But I think like that what you just said is like a really good example of why people seek out that last element. Like when you like if I'm a cloud, right? I'm all air and water. If I'm just air and water all the time, floating through and then like collecting water and then crying, like and that's exhausting, right? Like I need fire and I need earth. I need movement and I need grounding and like you're going to eventually feel imbalanced with just the elements
Right.
that are loud in your life. And you're going to feel like you need them. And so
Mhm.
you can absolutely find them, right? Like you can find ways of aligning yourself with those things that you felt a lack with, right? And so I think that's why it ends up becoming so prominent and important that you seek out the elements that you don't have. And we naturally do this. Like, I've never really had a client where I've said, "Oh, you lack earth, so you need to be outside in the woods." I've never had them be like, "What? Really? I hate
What do you
outside."
mean?
Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Especially like once you're like maybe 25, you've probably figured
Right, right.
this out a bit. Once you're 30, you should know this. But like,
It's going to be very clear one way or the other. Like, sure, you can
correct.
deny it, you can dissociate. That's going to create its own host of problems. But one way or the other, it's going to be playing out by 30, roughly. Yeah.
Exactly, right. Like you're going to notice it and you're going to start seeking what you lack because you're going to feel that lack in your life and you're going to need it. And actually, what I've found is people who have a balance of everything, those are the people that struggle the most because
Challenge.
they
Yeah.
have it all. So they're not really like seeking anything, but they're not necessarily like good at something specific. So there's just kind of like a weird, what am I
Yeah,
doing
they have to
with my energy?
really know what they want.
Correct.
Yeah, because it'd be very easy to be swayed by external opinion. Like essentially, if you're equally good at all the things you try your hand at, like actually, I have a friend I'm thinking of right now. I've sent her to you for a reading, and you've looked at her chart, and you've said the same thing about, kind of her being able to do jump in any direction. And there's a lot of potential there, right? There's a lot of latent possibility. But, and I think in her case, she is very good about knowing what she wants to do next. But I could easily see that being for someone else with a similar chart, being a stumbling point because you're going to listen to people who go, oh, yeah, you're so good at finance. You should stay in finance. Why would you leave, right? You're so good at medical. Why would you ever leave medical? You're so good at being a flight attendant. Why would you ever leave this, right?
Right.
But you have to be that much more confident and in tune with your inner voice that goes, no, I think it is time to leave.
Correct.
And that can be a really
Yeah.
hard one. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that is going to be really important that you do keep up with stuff like that.
Yeah. Mm.
Um, but yes, let's go back to the Aries conversation. Um, there's just a lot of energy in Aries. It's gonna feel, and it's funny because it's like every planet is there except for the benefics, like except
Mm.
for Venus and Jupiter. Jupiter's squaring it all, so that, I mean, that's helpful. Um,
Is that, I mean, typically a square is like a difficult uh
it can
angle, what's
be,
the word,
yeah,
aspect. But if
more
it's a
of a
benefic, it's less, it can even still be a positive influence.
right. How I see it is like, yes, squares and oppositions are harder aspects by definition. Like squares are of the nature of Mars and oppositions are of the nature of Saturn. So
Yeah.
that Saturn energy in an opposition can feel like a tightrope that you're walking or like a game of like a push-pull, which obviously can be very hard. But and then squares can be like a fight because they're all the same
Like a
modality.
clash. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a clash. Like it's like they're the same modality, so they want to do things in a similar way, but they're like different energies and they want to do things their way by their
Differently.
elements. So it's just going to create a sense of like, eh. Um, and so, but how I see it is a square is still better than an inversion. Having two planets,
What's an inversion?
an aversion is when two planets can't see each other. They don't make aspects.
Mm.
So they're either next to each other or opposite and over by one.
A quincunx, is that like the 150?
Yeah,
Okay.
a quincunx is another word for an aversion.
Aversion. Okay.
But a quincunx technically doesn't account for the ones next to them.
Right,
They're
right.
blind spots.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I like to think of blind spots as like the spot in the car that you can't see. So like if you get over in the other lane without triple checking it, you might hit somebody. It's like that kind of thing where
Right.
it's like it could be potentially really dangerous that these two are not communicating. Whereas
Right.
square, there might be some tension, but you can at least like figure it out. Like you can at least talk or
Right, right. There's energy like flowing directly at each other. It's just kind of zapping in the middle point. Whereas the blind spot is more like the energy's not even, it's just like, going in completely separate tracks. And you're like, okay, hey, you got to be aware that right next door this is happening, or right across the street this is happening. Yeah.
right. Correct. And yeah, and I think there's good things and bad things to be said about that. Like when I meet people who have like really heavy squaring energies to me, like sometimes we might like not always see eye to eye in the way that we do things, but there's a lot you can learn from those people. Or like planets in my own chart that square each other. Like I always see that as like better. Like at least
Mhm.
they're in communication. Whereas like, yeah, an aversion is just a complete blind spot. And so they're gonna just do their own thing without communicating at all. And sometimes that ends up being really bad.
Right, right. No, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. And just going back to the Jupiter square we're saying, so especially if it's a benefic, a square might not be a bad thing. Might not
Correct.
be so bad. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I definitely think there's a lot to be said about all of that. Like just being able to understand like what is happening with this energy and why.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, well, if there's any of us out here like me who are a little Aries season just in general makes them a little on edge, do you have any words of hope or encouragement for the next chapter? What's coming after Aries?
Yeah, I
The
mean
Aries dump.
there's just gonna be a lot in Aries for a while now.
Like even after we exit Aries season. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fair.
even after, I mean, because Mercury is about to move into Aries and Mars is about to move into Aries. Mars will be there for probably about 2 months. I mean, but Saturn is still going to be there for 3 years. Neptune's
Right.
going to be
Yeah.
there for 14 years. We're still going to have Aries energy for quite a while. But the sun is already halfway done. The moon will only be there for 2 days. Like there is going to be both. We're going to see both energies, but yeah, it's just gonna be like a hold on tight. People might annoy you. There might be an extra amount of just like some chaos for a temporary amount of time. Um,
Yeah, well, and circling back to the whole like looking for the opposite medicine, right? So I guess if there's an excess of Aries, what would the opposite medicine be? It would be something watery.
yeah, water. I feel like you definitely want to look at where Aries is in your chart as well.
Sure.
Because Aries is my 10th house, so it might have something to do with like my visibility. Um, and so I definitely feel like you want to start looking at some other like techniques and stuff too. Um, because once you start layering that, it's going to make a little more sense to how it's going to affect you personally.
Personally, yeah.
But like, yeah, with it being my 10th house, like that might be a good day to not be on the internet. Like, like people might get on my nerves or people might say something that hurts my feelings or whatever it is, right?
Right.
For you, it's your ninth house, so maybe
Nine. Yeah.
like, yeah, you might be really questioning your belief system, or there might be going something going on with like your understanding of the world or like travel. Like, I wouldn't travel for you
Yeah.
on that
Well,
day.
I was going to say, I mean, it's funny because, when you know the astrology, sometimes you're like, okay, I see why I'm feeling this way, but completely independently of, knowing the astrology, I definitely have been feeling for a while now, like now is not the time to travel. And I know other people are still choosing to travel and do that kind of thing. And, I'm not passing judgment on them. But for me personally, I'm like, I can just feel this is not a good time to do that. And also, it's interesting, yeah, with belief systems and stuff, I think one way that's been playing out for me, I was saying this into a message to you the other day, was just that I've been feeling this extra drive to just like study and like educate myself about different belief systems, right? Even like really radically opposing belief systems. And just trying to, yeah, just keep an open mind about that. And it's like, yeah, I think no matter what, I'm going to encounter some doubt and some critical energies in the area of belief systems, for the next couple of years with my chart. But I feel like I can help mitigate that a little bit by at least like widening the lens, right? And being like, okay, I'm going to try to see as much of the bigger picture as I can to rationalize, to contextualize the critical, the negative. And then, yeah, just like staying open to having my mind changed, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I think that was a big thing for me. Because Neptune and Saturn just left my
Right.
ninth house, but it literally
Yeah.
left like at the end. So at the end of January, I moved out of a ninth house perfection year and into a 10th house. And so I was like finishing up my ninth house Pisces perfection year while all of that was happening like so loudly. And
Yeah.
I was really trying to sit with a lot of those themes and be like, okay, this is heavy. This is a lot, right? So what are my beliefs now? And like, since Saturn has been in my ninth for 3 years and now it's in my 10th, like I was very happy to get it out of my ninth. I was very,
Yeah.
yeah, just
I mean,
like,
I was happy to get it out of my eighth. Like I'm one step behind you, right? We always joke about that. But yeah, it does
oh,
seem like whenever it moves, we're like, ah, but then immediately there's another bundle of stuff, and we're like, oh, okay, all right. There's no such thing as just like rest time. It's just
I
onto a
know.
different lesson, onto a different chapter. Yeah.
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 It's just
Yeah.
like very quickly, like, okay. now we're here.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think there is something to be, there's a satisfaction, I think, that comes as we start to become more aware of like these Saturn cycles. There is some satisfaction to like, okay, we wrapped up that chapter. And, even if it didn't go 100% the way that you wanted it to, quote unquote, you still can look back and go, wow, I learned so much. I'm a different person than when I went into this cycle. Here are things that I'm never going to repeat, like bad behavior, stupid behavior that I'm never, mistakes that I'm never going to repeat because of that experience. I feel so much more equipped to have, a similar experience in the future or to navigate this better. Or like another way of thinking of it is if you find someone with the rising sign behind you, like we're staggered, right? It's like I feel so equipped now to talk to someone about having Saturn in their eighth, right? You feel so equipped to talk to someone about having Saturn in their ninth. So it's like I think if you have that kind of feeling, then yeah, I think you can pat yourself on the back and go, okay, you did okay. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just going to be challenging wherever it is, but in another 3 years, it's going to be the same for me in the ninth and you in the 10th, right? And on to the next. So yeah, it's just a wheel
Well, and
turning.
it is funny because I do feel like most of my friends or people that I'm around the most are either a Cancer rising like me, or they're a Gemini or a Leo rising, so one above or one below, or they have a cardinal rising sign.
Mm.
So they have like either, I know so many Capricorn risings or like
Hmm.
Libra or Aries. And this goes for clients too. Like I have
Hmm.
so many of that. And like I really don't attract a whole lot of like Pisces or Aquarius risings or
Hmm.
Taurus risings or Sag rising. Like I know some, but I don't know many. Whereas like all of my close friends are literally like the sign above, the sign below, my sign, or on my angles. And I think that's because like any other cardinal rising sign is going to deeply relate to the themes of the
Yep.
angles being lit up. So
Yep.
like Alicia, my podcast partner, she's a Libra rising, and we've talked about this a lot because like when Jupiter's moving through my ascendant, it's moving her MC, like it's hitting her
Mm.
10th house. So it's like very
It's
anxious.
back to that square, the concept of the square energy, right? That like, yeah, we may not be 100% on the same page, but like we're still just like you and I joke about the opposition, like Leo Aquarius axis all the time, because it's
Right.
like we're so similar, but then also we're so different, right? And squares is like, yeah,
Yeah.
a variation on that theme. I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And it's fascinating to watch how it actually plays out, especially with like other people who are so similar to you in the in those ways. But it's funny because I feel like I have so many Gemini risings
Mm.
in my life who are going through like I get to watch what's happening to them and be like, "Oh, that's what's coming next for me with Saturn
Right.
transits." Or like,
Exactly.
"Oh, all this stuff is happening like Aries is their 11th house." So it's like I get to watch that showing up. But then it's like, "Oh, well, how is this playing out for me?" And then I am like I have all of my Leo rising friends who it's like, "Oh, I can give you advice because I just went through this." And so it is kind of funny to be able to I don't know, see it play out in real time and like have people on either side.
Yeah, yeah. Like for me, one of my other best friends and roommates is Virgo rising, right? So it's like they're starting to enter into, and I'm like, oh, I see what's happening. I see it. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that is interesting. And I think the more, again, the more aware we are of our chart and, other people's charts, the more we realize, oh, these connections that we make, these profound, partnerships and friendships and mentorships and things, yeah, they're not accidental because we are all uniquely positioned to give better advice, or at least like more relevant advice, I guess, to
Mhm.
certain people than others, right? And yeah, that's why as a reader, sometimes you don't click with someone, right? And I always tell people, yeah, like if you're unsure, like if you don't get a good vibe, if you don't have good chemistry with your reader, it doesn't matter how qualified they are. If it doesn't feel relevant or if it doesn't feel like it's vibing, then probably don't bother because it's probably just not going to hit, right? It's not going to land,
Right.
even if they're very technically proficient, qualified. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And it's so interesting. Like,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We have hyperactive kitties. And you got hair all over me, and now I'm sneezing. My nose is all stuffy. I was like petting her, and all this like fur flew up in my face. I
Oh,
was like, oh no, I need to brush you. Yeah, well, does anyone on your side, does anyone on the TikTok have any like questions or anything, any Q&A type of things, to wrap up our Aries meetup?
I have been noticing a few come in here and there, but nothing, no like real.
Yeah, well, for the future, if anyone ever has any questions for us or any comments or anecdotes they want to share, if something we said was relevant, you can always pop it in the chat. Or you can obviously hit either of us up on socials before one of these meetups and let us know if there's, something that you're curious about or would like to hear about. We're always happy to field, yeah, user comments and questions. Yeah.
Somebody named Skeptic said Gemini rising can do everything. Gemini risings are funny metaphors. Cat is Gemini rising. Cat is Gemini energy. Please bring cat back. Bring the cat back, bro, maybe. Do readings for the cat. Sad Mars, better GNF, GNG. Astrology college course. Astronomy two worlds apart.
Okay, I'm not 100% sure what to make of that, but I do love the pro cat messages. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
definitely both
we
very
are
pro
pro
cat.
cat.
Well, and actually, on a quick side note, one of my favorite kinds of readings to do for my Maneki method, which is not quite astrology, but it's analogous. There's an overlap. It's birthday based. It's pretty rare because a lot of people don't know the exact birthday of their pets. You might have had this experience too, but every once in a while you'll get someone with a pet chart, and they want some advice on their pet's birthday or like their synastry with their pet, how they can be better pet parents or whatnot, or their pets getting along with siblings or not getting along with siblings, that kind of thing. And those are always fascinating. One of my biggest sorrows is that I don't have a chart of any kind for Lily, who's my kitty that you're seeing here.
Yeah.
Um, I joke she's my firstborn daughter, but yeah, I don't have any data about her because she was a shelter kitty and they found her, when she was already weeks, if not months old. So I really
Right.
don't know. I mean, I might know the month of her birth vaguely, but barely that. I think she'd be somewhere close to January birth. I mean, she might even be close to your birthday, who knows? But that's
Yeah.
about all I know.
That would feel
But
right.
I do have one kitty out of the five here that I know the date and time actually, so we could even pull his astrology chart. My system doesn't even need the time of birth, but I do have his complete chart. So it's quite funny because it really does play out. Like, I think in a way, if you don't believe in astrology or like if you're skeptical about it with humans, it's interesting to apply it to pets because it's almost like harder to argue with because it's like
Right.
pets just are who they are. Animals don't have like ulterior motives. They just express, without shame or fear. They just are who they are. And it's kind of like harder to argue with the evidence or like with the interpretation with
Yeah.
the pet because it's like, no, that's who they are. And it's pretty literal. Like it usually plays out pretty literally. So it's interesting stuff.
It is so interesting. I mean, I have Leo's full chart because like
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
And of course,
time
yeah.
and everything.
Yeah.
Um,
Very significant chart
yeah.
over there. Yeah.
It would be really interesting if your cat did have my birthday because Leo's is close to yours.
I know, right? I hadn't actually thought about that, but I was like, wait a
Yeah.
second, 'cause I got her around
Feels like it makes
Thanksgiving,
sense.
which is
Yeah.
late November, and they said she was about 11 months at that point. So that would be somewhere in January, right? And if it was like actually very close to 11 months, it would be late January.
Right.
That's weird. That's funny. I can't believe it. I didn't think about that until now. Cause like, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
your cat is 2 days off of my birthday and we're 2 days
Right.
off of being 6 months apart. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Huh.
I feel like it is.
Yeah, I think there's something there. Yeah, there's always something there.
There's always something
There's
there.
definitely always something there. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I am confused by all of the live stuff, but I haven't gone live in years, so I also don't really understand how anything works. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, well, we'll continue to do these both on Zoom and I think TikTok Live so that there are multiple ways of joining us. And there's
Yes.
also a WhatsApp chat if anyone wants to be included in that. Give either of us a shout out. We kind of post our upcoming dates and things. We're
And the
both
recordings.
pretty right, and the link to the full recording and that kind of thing. Because we both have kind of eclectic schedules, so these dates are a little bit, flexible all over the place. But if anyone has any preferences or anything, we try to take those into account.
Yeah, yeah, and we can pretty easily just like enter anybody into the group chat if you just shoot me your phone number
Yeah.
and I'll get you added.
Okay, well, I guess maybe that's it for Aries season, but honestly, I'm okay with with having that much and calling it a day
Yeah.
for Aries. That's just my personal stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Good old Aries energy.
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, what a time.
Yeah, truly. Well, last call. Does anybody have any questions or anything you want answered? Okay. It used to have like little like thinking bubbles and it used to
Mm,
tell you how many people were in here.
yeah, these
Probably moved
interfaces
around.
change constantly, but well, we'll learn as we go. We're trying to be
Yes.
sustainably adapting to the insane evolution of technology, but I'm trying to not get outdated, at least not before I'm like 60. But I feel like if I'm like 60 or 70, I can, I'll be like whatever, but I think,
Yeah.
I'm aiming for the next whatever 20, 30 years to try and stay enough on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's hard to do. But yes, we'll do
But
more of
okay.
these. And
Yeah, well, for anyone who's watching at a later date, yeah, feel free to tune into whatever our next upcoming episode is. We're always glad to have friends and visitors, and we'll see you for the next one.